In the past, some of the period films that I've done, it's like Tai Chi Master or Wing Chun, the focus was more on the action rather than all these stories, the emotional side, the self-sacrificing, all those very in-depth feelings that is so apparent in these kind of myths. But here in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Ang has brought out the very lyrical, the very romantic, and at the same time, the very powerful martial arts that it needs to have. When Ang approached me to do Crouching Tiger, there was no doubt in my mind this was the movie that I had to do. I think, you get to a stage in your life where you have to be very honest with yourself. Why are you doing certain things? James Bond was a perfect opportunity for me to be introduced in a major way, especially to the American and the European audiences, having a legacy like that and then having a role that was so strong was incredible for me as an actress and for my career. But working with Ang, my management, Terence Chang, my agents at UTA understood because everybody knows Ang's work. No one was doubtful for 1 second that he would not be able to bring me to another level as an actress. And for me, that was the most important thing.
我跟 Mu Bai 都不是胆怯的人，也许事情并不是你想的那样。
I had to explore really the emotional levels to be able to cope with this character. For example, like the final death scene. It wasn't something, because it was shot, I think, over a period of 3 days. It wasn't something that you could feel superficially, because after one shot, it's very difficult to recreate that same thing. Or is it about method acting? But at the end of the day, it was working with Ang and knowing how to get it feeling from your guts, how to have it coming out and taking it all back in, but knowing that sense of loss from within. So in that way, yes, I've explored all the different sort of emotional ups and downs, and then being injured in this movie probably also gave me that added boost into feeling the pain and that sense of loss. And prior to this, I was thinking of going behind the scenes as well. So when I approached this movie, I knew I wasn't just going to be the actress in this movie. I was going to watch very carefully how Ang worked and how production was done. When we approach each project, I have to be very decisive and digital about it. What am I getting? I'm putting in, for Crouching Tiger now, almost 2 years of my life. And this has to be very, very meaningful to me. What am I going to learn from this particular film? What am I going to be getting emotionally? And or else, what is it going to do to my career? And I think it's done immense things for me personally as a human being. And then now when the movie is coming out and I've seen what I can do, I think it's improved. It's put me on a level where people are taking me much more seriously as an actress rather than just an action actress. And that for me is very precious.
这个盗剑人很不寻常，应该不会这么傻的。
When Ang approached me to do Sense and Sensibility with martial arts, I knew this wasn't just going to be another martial arts film where, the testosterone takes over everything else. When I first read the script, it was great conflict because this character, Yu Shu Lien, is very much different from what I am. Being a modern woman, I really don't know very much about the women of the Qing dynasty, what they get up to, why they think like that, why are they so repressed. I'm much more outgoing personality. I'm very direct. I confront issues, and the way I talk, I'm very animated. And suddenly there is this character who is very noble and has got such an incredible inner strength, so gracious, so self-sacrificing, and then, to have the love of a life, never being able to tell her how much he really feels for her. I mean, if I ever met someone like that, I'd probably, shake his teeth out and say, just get on with it. So dealing with that to start off with, and then, understanding that period of time, these two characters, what was the background, and this character that I play is so multidimensional. And so subtle, yet at the same time, her inner strength is so powerful that working together with Ang, that was how we created this person. Because I had absolute confidence in Ang Lee. I knew that there was no acting in this movie. The minute you acted, the minute you didn't give him what was coming from here, he would basically ask you to repeat and do it again until you got it, until you felt it. He's dedicated. He has a vision. He knows what he wants. In his mind, this is a dream that he wants to bring to reality. And I think that's the most important thing. You need that for a director to have that. Because when he walks into that scene, when he's looking at his monitor, he wants certain performances from us. He sees the complete picture. So for me to walk into this film, I basically just let him take the lead. Because I think, especially for Chow and my character, if what you see in the film you do not feel, you will not be able to understand, because there's nothing explained in that way. So I did not hold back. I was never aware of, where the camera was or what the lighting was or what it was. It was just knowing what I was supposed to be doing in that particular scene. So for me, he's the most perfect director.
什么事？
一些心里放不下的事。
And Chow is such an incredible actor. He's very giving. And that was very necessary. I couldn't look at him longingly if he wasn't giving it back to me. And it became very powerful in that sense, that connection. Because, as we went along in the film, you could see what was held very, very deep inside was slowly sort of coming out and slowly, subtly bubbling over until the final sequence. Because once we got into our costume, once we walked onto the set, as you know, the biggest problem we both have is with the dialogue, with the language, especially for me, because I don't read Chinese and I know Mandarin, just, conversation, what I want to eat, where I want to go, and that's it. And then suddenly to be confronted with this very beautiful language, but very specific, because there are only 4 intonations in the way of speaking. You cannot convey how you feel by changing the intonation. When you change the intonation, you change the meaning of the word. So that was just sheer hard work, memorizing all the lines and hoping that Ang is not going to change it, as we went along. When we walked in, it was knowing this character so well that the minute we started the scene, we were them, basically. So it was a pleasure working with someone like Chow Yun-fat. We're trying very hard to persuade Ang to do the prequel to it, because he has told us, the story between Mu Bai and Yu Shu Lien is actually very, very intricate. And Chow and I, after this film, we had such a wonderful time together doing this. I would really love to work with both of them together again. I've had some major injuries doing this. Unfortunately, it comes with the game. there is always that higher risk because you do action films. For example, in this film, in the first fighting sequence, unfortunately, I hurt my knee and I needed ACL reconstruction, knee surgery. Accidents happen. It wasn't a difficult stunt. It was one of those, and possibly accidents always happen when it's the easier things, when, you know, it's things that you've taken for granted. I've done that jumping kick, you know, possibly 50, 60 times a day. And for me, you don't even have to think about it. But then when you're working in different conditions, maybe the ground wasn't even enough, there was a stone in the way. You know, when I was fighting with my son, man, you know, our legs should touched and shouldn't have. So there are things that it's just unexpected. And it was one of those things. It was an accident. But I was back on the set 3, 4 weeks later, and I went into the final action sequence too. If it comes to a day where when I think, you know, I can't take this anymore, then I will retire from action films. At the present moment, I love it. It's like, for example, my own first production for mythical films with Media Asia is The Touch, and it's an action adventure. It's very easy for people to say to me and say, oh, haven't you had enough of doing action films? Wouldn't you like to just do dramatic roles and things like that? I'd like to have the balance of doing both, but I would not want to choose and say it's either or. I honestly have a lot of fun doing it. I get to do things that are physically impossible to do in reality. But once I'm in the films, once I'm on my set and I'm working with my stunt coordinator and my stunt team, I get to do all this like amazing feats. You know, I can walk up walls, around walls, do somersaults, you know, fly out the buildings, run on rooftops. It's like, why not? In maybe 15 years, 20 years, I would say, yes, now I know why. Why not? No, I would stop right then. He's probably shortened 5 years of his life doing this movie. We had an incredible crew, you know, Peter Pao with the amazing cinematic value that he brought to the film, and then Yuen Wo-ping and his stunt team with the stunt coordinations. And then all these people who are working 15, 16 hours a day in the worst possible conditions, you know, in the Gobi Desert where it was like over 100 degrees, and then when we finished in Beijing, it was minus 13 degrees. We really wanted this film to work. I think what it is this genre of films is something that we know so well. You know, if you were to go to Asia, you see it on TV, you see these swordsmen and women, these warriors. We've grown up with these myths and legends and fairy tales to us. And now what we want to do is we want to share it with the rest of the world. I think when you see what we've grown up with, you understand our culture a little bit more. And that is a way of communication. And I think it's very vital, you know, for people to have that deeper understanding about, you know, why we are different, why do we sometimes think differently. What Ang Lee's done with this genre of films is paid them the highest respect that's due to it. He has found almost the perfect balance with the drama and the martial arts.